County, Maryland. Police telling Fox News that that school, Great Mills High School, is being evacuated. Students are being taken to another school to be reunited with their parents. Thankfully, authorities say as of this moment, there are no fatalities. No one was killed, but at least 3 people are injured. They are not identifying whether they are students or the severity of those injuries. The FBI is en route, the ATF already on that scene. So again, that school being evacuated, 3 people injured. Thankfully this morning, no deaths. Sandra?
It seems to me that the timing is a little suspicious given all that the president had said about Andy McCabe. If you're the Attorney General of the United States, you run the damn Justice Department, you know? And you got to have the guts to look at the president every now and again and say no.
Former Attorney General Eric Holder urging Jeff Sessions to stand up to the president after he fired Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe just 2 days before McCabe was eligible for his pension. Let's bring in Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House and Fox News contributor. Mr. Speaker, thank you for joining us this morning. Do you see any irony there?
Look, I think the idea of an Obama Attorney General, given their terrible track record with the Clinton investigation, the degree to which they have essentially colluded with the Clintons to avoid learning things that would have knocked her out of the race. I think for Holder to say anything shows a level of chutzpah that's remarkable. And remember, Jeff Sessions didn't go out of his way to fire McCabe. McCabe was found guilty by the Inspector General of the FBI, who said that McCabe had failed to tell the truth and that under FBI rules, which have been applied very consistently to a number of people over the last year, if you fail to tell the truth as an FBI agent, you're fired. Now, that was not Trump. That was the internal Inspector General, who I believe was an Obama appointee.
What do you make of him also suggesting that the timing is suspicious, Speaker?
Well, I think look, he ought to talk to the Inspector General who he helped appoint. The timing was not a function of the Attorney General Sessions. The timing was a function of when did the report come in. The report apparently came in that day. They thought he'd be fired by 5 o'clock, and apparently the Attorney General reviewed it, wanted to make sure it was correct, and then fired him. And I just think it's astonishing that we're seeing this double standard where when the very bureaucracy of the FBI itself finds that McCabe failed to tell the truth, and under FBI rules, that means you get fired. Why should anybody but McCabe be a person of consequence in that conversation?
You know, there's still a lot of speculation out there about the future of Robert Mueller under President Trump, and President Trump making it very clear through his White House lawyer and Sarah Sanders this morning, saying the president has no intention to do so. Republicans who have spoken with the president say the president has no intent. But there's so much speculation out there still over what the president plans to do next with this investigation.
Look, what the president ought to do is quit tweeting about Mueller. Every time the president tweets about Robert Mueller, he makes Mueller bigger and more important. He's the president of the United States. Mueller's a lawyer. The gap in their stature is enormous. The president has lots of positive things to tweet about. We just saw 2 million people leave food stamps and go to work. We have the second lowest black unemployment in American history. There are a lot of good things happening out there, and he drowns all of those with these kind of tweets that actually do him harm, weaken the Republicans for 2018 in the election, and make Mueller more important. I think it's a really, really bad strategy by President Trump.
And now word the president plans to shake up his legal team. Why do that now?
Well, I think, first of all, that bringing in somebody who has been an independent counsel in his own right, a U.S. attorney who's prosecuted these kind of cases, I think that's probably a pretty good thing to do. And bringing in somebody who's on TV all the time and who has a real ability to articulate this. Dealing with an independent counsel is unlike anything else you ever do. So even though President Trump had many years of litigation in the private sector, that actually misinforms him about what he's up against. These kind of fights are partly political, they're partly PR, and they're partly legal. And I think strengthening his team with somebody who understands all those aspects is actually a very good thing to be doing.
Does any of this tell you about the possibility of the president engaging in a sit-down with Robert Mueller or some sort of direct questioning from Mueller?
Well, I think if you know, my advice to the president's attorneys would be to accept written questions and provide written responses. But I think given that the greatest danger you get in these kind of cases is not that you did something wrong. It's that you say something wrong in the interview, they then decide that that's perjury, and they go after you for something which was purely an innocent mistake. It's very dangerous for somebody who has the enjoyment of talking that President Trump has to get in that kind of a conversation. Because the second he's undisciplined, he sets himself up for a perjury or an obstruction of justice charge. So if I were his lawyers, I'd say we'll be glad to answer your questions. You submit them in writing. But by the way, tell us what crime you're investigating. This is a point Andy McCarthy has made brilliantly. We don't know. I mean, why is Mueller talking to the president?
Yeah.
What's the crime? Yeah. What's he investigating?
We've heard that.
You're not allowed to just run a dragnet, you know.
All right.
Yep.
Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, thanks for being on this morning.
Great to be.
And we're right now waiting a news conference in Texas. It's an update on that package explosion at the FedEx facility in San Antonio overnight. And the suspicious package that we're told was found at the FedEx facility in Austin